bump in the road is for your benefit. Every turn that seems a dead end is a new bright beginning. And when we start to understand that and embrace the pain and say, I love you, teach me more, give me more, and just let me bear it with faith and a greater perspective, my gosh, my friends, you become superhuman.
Welcome back to the Energy Fix podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. Today, we're going to be talking about change, consistency, and why motivation is such a flaky little friend. I mean, if you feel like motivation is that concept that is constantly eluding you, you are not alone, my friend. And we're going to be talking all about that because most of us have had the experience of getting excited, making the plan, buying the notebooks, setting the goals. And then 2 weeks later, life happens and energy dips and stress kicks in. And suddenly the whole thing is just sitting there staring at us, asking us, well, are we going to continue on or not? My guest today is David Fullmer. He's the creator of B7, the Superhuman Rhythm, a human development framework designed to help people build clarity, resilience, and consistency through structure and repeatable habits, not by waiting around for motivation to magically show up. We're going to talk about why rhythm matters, how structure can actually create freedom, what the B7 framework teaches us about self mastery, and how to build a life that supports the person you're actually becoming, because that's what it's all about, who you're becoming. All right, David, let's dive in. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Aloha.
Yes, calling in from beautiful Hawaii.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. Well, I want to start by just getting down and deep into this with a real life problem that I think comes up more than people like to actually admit. And that is why, David, why do so many people struggle to stay consistent even when they deeply want the change to happen?
It's due. I found in my own life and working with a lot of people and thousands of sales professionals and entrepreneurs that our decision making our decision making patterns is based on the vibration inside of us. So when we're making a decision out of fear, we're making a decision out of stress or worry or doubt, that's when it sets us back and we start to stumble around and kind of, so to speak, grab for straws and this and that, and we don't stand on a foundation where okay, the storm is around me, but I know and I'm fixed on what I want to do and I have to get this done. And so when the problems start popping up, it gets us out of rhythm. And when we're out of rhythm, everything gets chaotic and you just start basically putting out any fire that's close to you instead of really understanding the landscape and living with a true perspective and breathing, understanding that things are not always as bad as we think they are, and making decisions that are sound and consistent with our goals and what we're trying to become.
Yeah. And I 1,000% agree with you on that. I guess my biggest question, decisions are based off our vibration. My biggest question then, David, to that is, well, why do you think that so many self help books and so many self help courses and conversations never actually talk about this? They actually talk more about the hustle culture, pushing, 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 more, more, more. Why? Why have we not really truly addressed this? Because you're totally on point with this.
Yeah. And Jim Rohn, one of my dead mentors, he used to say, the harder you work on yourself, the less you have to work on your job or your goals. And so really taking an accountability of who we are personally and what our dreams, aspirations, talents, weaknesses are. Self-evaluation and personal development is such an intimate relationship we have with ourselves. And when that is at the forefront, when every single decision that we make, we understand that there's an end road and that we are becoming that decision and we're very intentional with it, then we get really, really far. The problem we see is so many that I struggled in my journey of personal development is I went to so many courses, I've read so many books, and there was always like, this hoot hara, everyone get all pumped and just grind and blah, blah. And there are always 6 steps to this and 5 steps to that. But it's like, when exactly do I implement that step? How do I go about that? Like people will talk about gratitude and it's like, you live in this chaotic world and it's like, oh, do I need to have gratitude right now? And so at what time do I exercise gratitude? And so there's all these different principles, but there's never been a time that we've actually been able to have which is I love about B7 is it is so simple and the everyday person is already 50% there. They already know every day of the week. So like, no one's ever explained to me and said, hey, look, here's exactly the way the framework and this is your intention each day, and you slowly step by step start to live these intentions, you get into a flow state, and when you're in a flow state you see dramatic change and you see amazing results. Grinding is always a part of life. We're never going to not have to grind, but it's so much more than a grind. It's enjoying the journey along the way, because that's what life is truly enjoying the process itself instead of just always thinking about the end result, because it's along the way that you can experience joy, right?
Yeah, yeah. For the longest time, and I'm not gonna say the podcast name because I still love the podcast, but there was a podcast I would listen to every single day, and the podcast itself was just short motivational clips. And it was amazing, and it was from big names that you hear all over the place, right? That were on these
Mhm.
short motivational clips, but it got to a point, David, I had to stop listening to it because I found I was bypassing my own stuff. I wasn't stopping and actually like paying attention. I'm like, no, I just need to keep pushing harder. I just need to keep going. Oh, I that's bothering me. No, I'm just going to push that in the background. But that was actually pushing me backwards because I wasn't addressing the things that truly needed to be addressed so that I could move forward. And I think a lot of people do that.
And yeah, and in the day and age, this technological world, and these fantasy worlds that we see on social media, and we live what we call vicariously through others. So if we're constantly following all these people and we're so integrated into their lives, there's a form of momentary dopamine that releases inside us where we live vicariously through their life and we're not actually living ours. So here's this individual living their dream life, and we have this dopamine because we're experiencing that life because technology has allowed us to be so intimately connected. And so, although those motivational, because I do motivational clips. I mean, we all need that little bump of
Mhm.
dopamine. But what I found as I did the same thing is it was just like this motivation every day. And I found out I was just a motivated idiot. I was going from motivational quote to motivational quote. It's like, oh, I just need more motivation. And once I realized, okay, motivation is good. There's one day set aside for that. That's to what motivates me. Like, what does that word mean? And why do I move with emotion? Because motivation and emotion are really similar. And so when I realize, okay, I'm going to have one day a week that I literally get deep down and dive into who am I? What am I becoming? What's the end result of that? What truly inspires me and motivates me? And I'm going to go after that this week. But it's motivation is just like fueling up your gas tank. It's fuel. And if you just sit at the gas pump over pumping your car with fuel and you don't get out on the road of life and chase your dreams, well, then you're just overfilled with motivation and you're going nowhere. So it's a balance and it's something to figure out, but it's really, really cool. And that's where the B7 rhythm has really helped me out in my life and helped out so many other hundreds of people. So
Yeah. Well, before we get into B7, David, I want your story. What brought you to this work, and what did you notice about people, habits, growth that made you realize this motivation wasn't enough?
well, as a young man, I went through a lot. I come from a family of 13 children.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
And uh, and I'm the fourth oldest and I'm the black sheep. I'm the one that was the troublemaker. I moved 29 times by the time I was 17. I lived in 6 different states, mostly coastal towns. My dad was a surfer, which is how I ended up on the North Shore of Oahu. All my kids grew up surfing, and we've traveled the world chasing waves as a family. Um, but because of the moving around, I was an angry young boy because every time I went to a new neighborhood or had a friend or a relationship, that relationship was taken from me. And so I was in a lot of pain. And I always knew every time I had a good friend that there would be a quick time that I'm out of here. And so it was like, hey, I'm having so much fun. This is awesome. And then, okay, bye. And that repetitive cycle. And so to me, I thought it was my biggest downfall why I was angry. And it wasn't till later in life I realized it was my greatest strength because it taught me communication. It taught me the importance that nothing is permanent except for who I become. And my legacy is on how I react to things. It taught me loss. There's so much we can learn from losing loved ones, friendships. There's an old saying: it takes a Judas to know Jesus. And once you embrace that, and you stop asking your heavenly Father or whoever your God is, when you stop praying for not to have trials, but the strength to endure them and the ability to see the light, the silver lining, and say, God, give me the strength to understand your will in this trying time in my life. And so I still remember the day I called my mom up and I just was just crying like a little baby. I said, Mom, thank you so much for moving me so many times. I would not have my communicating skills, my ability to read a room, my ability to interact with other humans if it wasn't for all those moving events. And it became what I thought was my greatest hinderment or my greatest weakness became one of my greatest strengths. And so a lot of us have weaknesses and we don't face them like that. And so and even in my life, it's like it's a constant battle to try to face those weaknesses. But aside from moving a lot of times, I ended up landing in Utah and I got put in youth corrections custody for 4.5 years. And I went to 4 different youth programs. I went to a wilderness program and was facing going away for another long time. And my PO, they allowed me, my Polynesian family, to adopt me for me to come to Hawaii. So I came to Hawaii when I was 17, right before I turned 18, and I was able to kind of just reflect. My dad was one of the first handful of employees for Stephen Covey. They wrote the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So as a young man, I would cruise around with my dad to these seminars, and I'm listening to Jim Rohn and Earl Schoaf and Napoleon Hill and all this stuff. And we think it doesn't rub off on our children, but I'm telling you, everybody's watching and everybody's absorbing. There's an old saying, your actions speak so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. And words are fleeting, but our real intention is what we act out. And so we can always say, well, I had good intentions, but this, and this happened. Well, it's like, well, we need to be really, really careful about how dreamy we get in our mind. But moving on with that. So that was kind of like my youth. And then my parents, unfortunately, went through a real tragic time. I was visiting from Hawaii. I was in my early 20s, and I was the oldest that wasn't married. And my mom divorced my dad, and she had 8 children at home. And I was the oldest male that wasn't married. And so I stayed with my mom for 3 years while she worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. And I watched my mom, and I was an angry little kid. I wanted to smash my dad, and I was really mad at the way things turned out. And she taught me a level of forgiveness, hard work, and how to look at the most brightest part of life, no matter the struggle that you're in. And when I watched her and her example and her sacrifice, it changed me for the rest of my life. I mean, she I remember my mom wouldn't get help from the state, and she can get $350 a kid. And I remember coming to her with, I had this plan. I was like, Mom, I figured out you can get $350 a kid, and you don't have to work anymore. And I remember her taking me in her arms, and just giving me a big hug. And she said, Oh, David, I know that, but there's a chance they could put your dad in jail. And it's better that we work really hard, because right now your dad's going through some stuff emotionally. And it's better that we work than these little children have to go visit a father in jail. And so, never held the kids from seeing my dad seeing his children, just complete love and kindness. And there were boundaries set, but it was the most, I would say, the most kindest way to watch a family. And now we all hang out. My dad's remarried, my mom's remarried. It's awesome. But her example, of service as well. I remember one particular moment, because I'm an angry kid. I just wanted to surf, so I wanted to come back to Hawaii and hang out with chicks and surf. And here I am stuck in Provo, Utah. I was like, dude, this sucks so bad. But anyway, so I get off work framing one Saturday morning. We had a half day framing, and I was framing houses, and I'm driving down Timpview Drive. I still remember to this day, and I'm bumping my Dr. Dre in my little Toyota truck. And I remember I remember looking over, and I see my mom in the dirt planting flowers at our church with all of her little children. Sorry. And she hadn't had a day off in like 4 months. She's working a graveyard shift at Stouffer's food plant. And I remember I almost ripped my steering wheel off, because I was just like, God, why are you doing this to my mom? And and that's when I realized, like, she just she just wanted to take her time to show her children to serving others brings happiness. Instead of looking at her life like, oh, I've been given the short stick. I have to raise all these kids, and my husband's a deadbeat, and blah, blah, blah. She never said any of those things. She said, love your father. He made mistakes. We all make mistakes. So her perspective of how do you find joy, and not looking at how terrible your life is, but looking at how beautiful it is. She looked at the flowers as a beautiful creation from God. She looked at setting an example to these little children. Like, I didn't understand, like, Mom, you have all this. Why don't you go do something for yourself? And it was like, no, because that's not doing something for myself is not where joy's found. It's in serving my fellow community and my family. That was heavy for me. And so going through experiences like that, and then I eventually got married. She got married and started my own business, and did very, very well. And by the time I was around 28 years old, I was racing motocross almost full time. I was an amateur desert racer, raced in the Baja 1000, and had two houses in Hawaii, and had houses in Utah, and was part of a development of building 400 homes out here in Hawaii, and had all this crazy stuff going. I was a multimillionaire. I was like cloud nine. I was like, nothing can go wrong. And people were talking about a recession. I was like, Captain Positive. I'm like, I don't care about recession. I'll get through anything. Right. And then everything started drying up. I didn't understand it. And me and my wife lost everything. And it was a real, real tough time for us. I had to file bankruptcy, and we lost everything. I mean, we had 2 pallets of photos and personal belongings. I kept one little teeny 50 dirt bike so I could put my kids on it, right around. But we moved to Hawaii, and decided to move out there. And another turning point in the importance of principles that I teach in B7, I was super depressed. I mean, I had 6 months I couldn't get out of bed. It was heavy. My poor wife was driving a dually Ford dump truck with no AC out here in Hawaii, and we were just living in the house until the bank took it. and I had this beautiful, sweet wife and 3 sons and a little baby, and I just felt like a failure, you know? I felt like it was my responsibility to take care of my family, and I had failed, and I was in a dark, dark place, and, uh, we had our we had our dump truck shipped out. This is we were living over there, and we got our dump truck shipped out, and it had our 2 pallets of personal belongings. This is when we had just moved to Hawaii, um, and, I was excited to kinda go through our personal stuff and kinda get all organized, but I took my son Simeon, which is my oldest son, to kindergarten, his first day of school. So dropped him off at school, cute little towhead, blonde hair, blue eye, little stud. He's 22 now, but and I come home and I'm unpacking, and again, I mean, this has been 6, 8 months of just watching, just slowly selling everything and losing everything. And I mean, we got to Hawaii, nothing changed. I still was just kind of stuck in this depressional state. And I open up and I'm looking at our wedding photos, you know, and I'm just kind of reminiscing. And I get to the back of our little, you know, the little book where everybody signs their name. And I come across one page that I completely spaced, and it was just a simple one sentence. And then it brought back the memory the night that we got married, the evening we got married before we left on our honeymoon. We went home to our apartment, and my wife was in her wedding gown. I'm in my tuxedo, and we're just sitting on the bed, like, oh, you know, like breathing, like, oh my gosh, that was a gnarly run up to a wedding. And now we're sitting home. We're like, okay, what are we going to do with our lives? And there was a contract in that book. And we had written down as a newly married couple, it said, and we were living in Provo at the time, it said, we will live next to the ocean by the first day of our old. Now she's pregnant with my son. And it says, we will live by the ocean by the first day of our oldest son's, for his first day of school. And I just broke, man. I was like, did I create this environment for me to learn? And like, I made the decisions to go bankrupt. It's like it all came to me. It's like I over leveraged. I bought too many properties. I didn't handle my business correctly. And it was complete accountability. And here I was staring at a contract I signed with my wife. We both signed it the night we got married. I didn't know I was going to have a successful business at the time. It was me and one other employee when I filled out this contract. So here I am almost 7 years later, 5 years later, and I'm literally living what I signed up for. And so that's the power of writing things down and dreaming. And it wasn't under the best conditions, but it was a dream that we had, and it fulfilled itself. So moving on from that, I've in my professional career, I've owned mortgage companies, done development, all kinds of different things, and primarily in the roofing and construction space, and had a couple other mishaps and kind of had to start from beginning. Nothing as heavy as that first time, but you know, pulled my company out of a hole 2 other times where, you know, I was a couple million in debt, and everyone's like, file bankruptcy. I'm like, nope, not going to do it. Not till the bitter end. You know, and so it's just going through that ups and downs of life. And now I currently operate 2 roofing companies, one out of Dallas, Texas, which is a commercial division, and then here in Hawaii. And yeah, we have about 150 employees and just cruising, and it's awesome, and traveling. And then just started a nutrition company based around bison liver and beef tallow and bison tallow skincare, and just kind of all health products and food products based around our pioneer ancestors and the way that we ate, kind of combating the whole food pyramid that I think has made a lot of people sick. So just through that, the last decade, I went down a rabbit hole in discovering B7, and I found out it was a gift to me, finding out that we as humanity and as human beings, we all experience similar emotions on the same day of the week. And when I figured that out, my brain was like, what? This is crazy. I'm like, and so I just started each day. I was like, okay, I got to find out whatever every day is. Like, what are we going through? And then Monday was like, more heart attacks happen from 8 a.m. to noon on Monday. And it's not their ethnicity, it's not their cholesterol level, it's their why. They don't know why they're on the planet Earth. The heart's like, I have no passion. I don't like my job. Everything sucks. I'm just going to kill over. I don't have a reason to live. Right. And so that hit me heavy on Monday. And then I was like, why are we always pushed to be out so religious on Sunday? That's obviously the religious day. That's what God gave us to worship. And then I was like, well, what about Friday? And then I was like, when do we get bad news? Friday. Excuse me. Friday. You know what happened? When does everyone get fired? Friday. Why? You have a high state of dopamine. Why? It's the weekend. You got the party. You don't have to work. So when does everyone get canned? Friday. When does bad news hit? Friday. When do they push bills in Congress? Friday. Friday, Friday, Friday. Okay. No one gets fired. Traditionally, no one always gets let go on Monday. Because if you did, you'd have people going postal. You know, what am I going to do the rest of the week? Right. And so this isn't like it's more than just like this personal development like theory. This is literally generational vibration that we're all going through. And how you memorize things is you attach a brain track, right? So you've got thousands-year-old brain track. I always tell everybody when I walk into a room, all right, we're going to start out this. We're all going to learn how to become 7. We're going to learn this vibration. And the best part is you're all 50% there. You already have half of this program memorized. I mean, when's the last time you walked in and were taught a process and the whole process you already knew to the depths of your soul, 50% of the program? And that was the power behind it. It's like, wow, because that's how we memorize things is we attach a super, whatever attribute or thought or name, we attach it to something we already know. So this is thousands of years of DNA vibration. The average person has 4,098 grandmas and grandpas. I might come from a family of 13 kids. Great. But what about the only child that doesn't know his parents? That's okay. You're my cousin. We're all 15th, 16th cousins. I guarantee you and I, if we were to trace our posterity back, you and I'm talking to my cousin. You know what I mean? And their vibration, their DNA is inside of us, and it vibrates and it passes on to the next generation. And so once you attach these 7 superhuman attributes to each day of the week, after a month, you can't forget it. You just know it. When you start getting off base, you're like, whoa, this is this day. And then boom, it checks you and just keeps you in rhythm. It's the coolest thing. So that's kind of how I came about it.
The superhuman rhythm, is that the rhythm that you're talking about specifically with what you learned, these emotions falling onto certain days of the week? Is that the actual rhythm that you were talking about?
Yeah, yeah, that's what my research is. It wasn't like, oh, I want to create a personal. I literally was living this, and I started living each day myself. And then when I realized that as a people of humanity, us all experiencing these similar emotions on the days of the week, I was like, wow, what if there we were meant to have 7, so I took 7 superhuman attributes and I attach them to each day of the week. They never go away. You're never going to forget them ever. And so yeah, we have to be motivated. So Monday is known as the mundane Mondays. It's when these heart attacks are happening. So that's the only day, that's the big day for motivation, because I want to know that's my day. I review my why. What am I doing on the planet Earth? Where am I going? These are my goals. I'm pumped. That's when I listen to the motivational videos and podcasts. But it's not every day. That's the day I get charged for the week, because that's what sends your whole trajectory beginning in the week and so that's motivation Monday, right? And then you move on to Tuesday, and that's tracking Tuesday. It's self-evaluation. God gave you two eyes, two ears, and one mouth. And so it's a day we track ourselves. It's the day of the avatar. The average person has 60,000 thoughts a day. 80% of them are negative. Imagine that. 80%. And we're on autopilot. We got all these little 100 gerbils in our brain on autopilot. And they're just like, you can't do that. I mean, the average little child has been told over 10,000 times, don't do that. Stop that. Don't touch that. No, no. So when we become adults, we're like, man, I bet you I could do this, this, and this. What do we hear? We hear those little subconscious no's. You can't, no way. And so we have to track and be an avatar to ourselves and truly track our own progression and track ourselves. How am I communicating with my friends and loved ones? How am I showing up? And really have self evaluation and true accountability, extreme accountability with myself. And so that's Tuesday. I make sure I'm just like listening for myself and watching the way that I listen to my friends and family. Have you ever had a story stomper where you're in the group of friends and you tell them a story about maybe something that happened when you were on vacation and blah blah blah, and then your other friend tells another story but it's like similar but it's even more intense than that one, right?
I call them the toppers, the people that
Yeah,
try to
yeah,
top you. Yes.
yes. So we all do that. Well, I read somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but this psychology book. Did you know that actually creates distance between you and that friend?
It doesn't surprise me. I'm sure.
It's crazy. It's like, so now when my friend tells a story and I'm in a group and I'm like, dude, I've got a story way better than this. And then all of a sudden, I remember I'm not going to top this. I'm going to give them the floor. I'm going to take it in. And one time down the road or somewhere, I'll be able to unveil my story that's really, really cool too. But I make sure if I'm telling a story, I actually will tell a story and actually congratulate and say, wow, that's intense. I had this happen, but it wasn't as intense as that. So you actually give them that cookie, you give them that love that their story is important and they're important. And it does not about the story. It's about connection and how are we connecting to the ones that we love. So that's another one on Tracking Tuesday. I always make sure that I'm not a story topper and that I'm being a cool friend, and it's funny, me and my wife were out in Maui eating dinner, and this guy told me that he was giving me this Mexico story. And I've been to Mexico 52 times. I had a family mine in the Chihuahua mountain range. And I mean, I had a hitman almost kill me, like kidnap it's a long story. But so this guy's telling us this story, and my wife looks over at me and she could see it on the tip of my, you know, and she just tapped on my hand after he walked away and she said, Dave, thank you for not that. She's like, I've heard your Mexico stories and there's so much more gnarlier than that guy. Thanks for giving him the floor and letting him enjoy his story. So it's just little things like that. And it creates connection with the human experience. And I want connection. Our network is not just our family, it's all the humans we interact with. So little things, but yeah, that's Tracking Tuesday. Then we move into the next day, which is Whisper Wednesday. If you were to interview airline pilots, cops, doctors, first responders, any lifeguards, anyone whose responsibility weight on their shoulders is for the health and well-being of humans, they have a heightened sense of intuition. Well, what about all of us? There's only a few of them. Why is my intuition not exercised and how do I do that? So Whisper Wednesdays, it's the day of quietness, the day of meditation. Now in my AM PM game, I meditate every day, but this truly is like I teach you get off your phone unless you're listening to beautiful symphony music and you walk in the woods, you walk on the beach, you get into an organic environment. What do you listen to? Nothing. You listen to your heartbeat. You listen to what I call the whisper. And we're so like digitally stimulated that we're just like, we can't, like we stare at these screens for hours. And it's like, what about your beautiful inspiration? I believe our ancestors walk among us They love us. I believe that the universe leaves, their pores of leaves open up to the songs of birds in the morning because that's when they get nutrients before the sun melts away the dewdrops. Well, what about me? I can wake up early and I can get and just sit under a tree and be grounded on the earth and listen to what my heart and my God is telling me. And so that's what I teach on Whisper Wednesday and all day long. I mean, and I listen to Whisper. There's times I ended up in the mainland. I call my office. I'm like, I'm going to the airport. I'm going to Maui. They're like, we have a meeting this morning. I was like, no, cancel. You guys already know Wednesdays and it's Dave's feather in the wind. I'm going where. So I take off to Maui. I land. My friend in Maui from Maui calls me and says, Dave, hey, I really need you to come by and inspect this roof. We have a bid that we need to get in. He's like, I don't know if you can come by tomorrow or the next day, but I really need you. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to believe this. He's like, what? I was like, I just landed in Maui and I have no reason to come here. I just came. And so there's just little things like that where all of us have done something not knowing why we did it until we looked back and we're like, wow, that was just inspiration. And so I believe it's like a muscle. We can exercise it. We can be good at listening to our heart. We can be good at listening to our spirit and connect them all together so that we can overcome and live with perspective. So that's Wednesday.
Before you go on, I've got to say, we're on hump day, which is Wednesday, right? We're on hump day. And I got to say, this stuff is tracking so far. As you're talking, I'm thinking the feel, because I'm very tuned into my feel. And I'm thinking the feel that I move into each day. And very much what you're saying, I'm like, oh, that is definitely the vibe that I feel on those days so far. This is
It's crazy. It's
incredibly interesting. So please go on Thursday. What do we got
what
next?
Well, and so this aligns with like constellations and like I don't want to. My wife's like into the constellation stuff. It's crazy. Like I didn't create this. I was, it was a gift to me. This is us. This is all of humanity. It's the coolest thing. But anyway, moving on to Thursday. When is Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving is every Thursday. It's Thankful Thursday. It's a day of gratitude. An army of lions that is led by a sheep will always be defeated by an army of sheep led by a lion. And the answer to that dichotomy is attitude, because attitude and gratitude, with a true attitude of gratitude, can be anything can be overcome and joy can be in any situation. I have a little nephew. He was born with no arms and no legs. And I can tell you right now, he's the happiest little kid on his little cart. He's got his little nub and he's cruising around and he's on his skateboard and he uses his mouth to move things in his shoulder. And my brother's never raised him like he had any less that another kid had. And he's the happiest kid you'd ever meet. And I mean, we're going to get him barreled surfing. And we're going to get him on a surfboard and get him inside the wave. And, I mean, this kid is just phenomenal. And it's his attitude. And so it's such a powerful antidote to the woes of life and when we get off kilter. And so Thankful Thursday, it's all about living with gratitude for everything. And I have a thing where we have a gratitude journal. We write down all the things we're thankful for as a family in the morning. And I send out the text messages and the emails to all those that I feel inclined to. And then I look for people throughout the day to thank them. I'm intentional to find someone to thank. And I remember I'm at Home Depot. This is like 4 or 5 months ago. I'm at Home Depot and I dream of being old with my wife. And that dream of being old with my wife helps throughout our marriage of being in arguments and stuff because I'm always constantly intentional wanting to be old and have a successful family. And I'm going down this aisle, the cabinet aisle, and the cutest couple you ever seen. They're in their 90s for sure. And this lady is just laying into this guy, and he's fighting back. It was about as gnarly as two 90-year-old people could scrap in the aisle at Home Depot, and they're arguing over a set of cabinets. And when I turned the corner, my first thought was, wow, they made it. They made it. And I just wanted to know how long they'd been married. So I walked up, they're arguing. I said, "Excuse me, how long have you guys been married?" And, it was like 50, almost 60 years, right? Something, whatever it was. And forever. And I just was like, I just want to thank you, you guys. And I mean, they even had matching clothes. They were the cutest freaking couple ever. So anyway, and I just thanked them. I said, I just want to thank you for holding on. I want to thank you guys for living all these years together. You're a great example to all of us younger married couples that go through it. Like divorce is so prevalent these days. And to see you guys here arguing in the Home Depot aisle is like the coolest thing ever. You guys are amazing. And I just see this lady just overcome with emotion and she's crying and she pulled her husband to her and they started talking about their children. So it went from this thing that they were arguing about to, wow, someone's watching us. And it's crazy. Like you can always find someone that looks at you and says, how did you do it? In the very act that you yourself are saying, I'm worthless, I'm falling apart. There's always someone down the road that's watching you and saying, what an amazing human. And it's because of our perspective. And so, yeah, Thankful Thursday is powerful. It's powerful to instill our emotions with super, super gratitude and feelings of gratitude because it just absorbs all the doubt and fear and helps us live with greater perspective. So that's Thursday.
Wow. Wow.
So you're high on gratitude and you're coming into Friday. I mean, what's Friday? Friday is the most amazing day ever. I mean, when I was a kid, I would get, Mom, I want $1 because they're gonna have a popsicle at the end of school, and we're all going through this. This is everybody, and it's the weekend. You have a party that night, you don't have to wake up early, da 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 da. We all know that, right? And so all the bad news comes on Friday. Like everyone gets fired on Friday. We talked about this. We're all going through this together, right? And that's why one of the most powerful superhuman emotions that we can have is forgiveness. It's Forgiveness Friday. Not to get people off, but for us to live. Eagles only fly with eagles. You want to be a little pigeon and talk and just sit and gossip? Just sit, you sit around and all of us get wrapped into it. Like we feel there's like this little like feeling of I'm better when we're talking bad about other people because that's not me. And or
Stop
you
doing that. I'm
you
dying over here.
you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
It's the pigeons, dude. They're everywhere. And all of us get wrapped into it. And it's not until we like spread our wings and have true perspective and say, wow, the weakness that's in that person is a weakness I'm capable of. I better watch what I talk about. I'm just going to forgive and soar. Next, let it go, move on. When I put this in my company, I had a young man that he he came to me on the fourth week. Right, I have this 28-day like kickstart guide. It's like it's 4 7-day B7 rhythm, right? And he came to me on the last Friday and he pulls me aside. He said, Dave, can I talk to you for a minute? I was like, yeah. And he just gives me this big hug. And I was like, are you okay, man? And he just breaks down. Here's this 26-year-old salesman, tough guy out there doing sales, knocking doors like a savage, selling roofs. And he said, it took me to the fourth Friday, Dave, to forgive my uncle. I've been holding on to this, something that my uncle did when I was younger, and it's been eating me alive in my relationships and everything. And it wasn't until today I felt free. I forgave my uncle today, and I just want to thank you. And it was just so powerful. And his career after that, I mean, the guy had such a greater success after this event and this realization that being mad at others does nothing but poison us. And so like Nelson Mandela, guy's got the military, the power of the purse. He can do whatever he wants. He's president. He's been locked away for over 20 years. What does he do? Does he go kill a bunch of people and take out the people that locked him up? No. He said, wishing harm on another human being for what they've done to me is like drinking poison and hoping it kills my enemy. And so, my friends, yeah, I just got back from the mainland. I was out in on a bison ranch in South Dakota, and I flew back last night, and it was an hour difference. Same plane, same distance, same pilot, same amount of people, but it was an hour difference because of a headwind and a tailwind. When we fly through our lives and we are chasing our goals and in the art of becoming, when we truly let go, right, we succeed. It is where true joy is found. I often say, you got your windshield, right? And there's this little teeny square at the top. It's called a rear view mirror. Okay. I implore anyone and be really safe, go to a parking lot and just stare in the rear view mirror for 5 seconds while your car goes about 2 miles an hour. You'll panic. And so too many of us, we just sit and stare in the rear view mirror. We're just hitting everything in sight. We're trying to get to our goals. We're trying to be successful. We're trying to be better moms and dads and uncles and brothers and all these things. And we can't figure out why our rhythm is off. Well, you got to let go, truly let go. And that doesn't mean you don't have boundaries, but it means that you love people to the depths as deep as you can, and you let it go. Sometimes it's a letter, sometimes it's a text you send to someone else, not even that particular person, but you got to get it out, let it go, and move. So that's Forgiveness Friday.
Wow. As you're talking here, I mean, I know we still have 2 more days to go here. As you're talking, I can't help thinking about how when you're doing this week after week after week, and every day is an intentional day, right? You're really manifesting when you're leaning into these emotions. And then that kind of carries over these emotions that you literally become this person. You become that superhuman person.
Yeah. And it's like Michelangelo. David was always in the statue.
Yeah.
I just chiseled away the imperfections and saw him in there.
Yeah.
And it's the same as us. When we start out in life, we're this jagged, rough, pointy stone. And through the challenges of bumping down the river and bouncing off of mistake after mistake after mistake, eventually we're in this beautiful beach and we're a beautiful, round, smooth stone. And so it takes repetition, it takes rhythm, it takes continually living with intention. And that's the beauty of B7 is it's like you don't have to memorize this big, long, all these steps and everything. It's just a simple intention, and you can live it to your culture and your family environment and in your own way, because forgiveness is universal. Your experiences are yours. But knowing every Friday when I have a heightened state of dopamine, I can't tell you how many dates me and my wife are, because Friday's our date night, right? So we'll be on our way. And it's like, where are we going to eat? And there'll be this little, well, I don't want to eat there, And if it's ever gotten to where it's like a little argument, we chuckle and look at each other and we're like, today's Forgiveness Friday. You can't be mad at me. And it's just like, it's so fun and it's really, really amazing. And so, yeah, it's been a huge blessing in
Yeah.
in all of my relationships.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, Saturday and Sunday, we got 2 more to
w-
go. Let's
2 more
learn
to go.
let's learn about the weekend days.
Okay, well, Saturday, no one on their deathbed wishes that they spent more time at the office. Okay, how many multi-billionaire philanthropists that spent all their time working, and they get to their deathbed and they're like, oh, I need to get, I'm going to give philanthropy. They start giving billions of dollars away to all these things. Why? Why are they doing that? Because there's a sense in the human condition of understanding that time's running out. And sometimes we don't think about that and understand how valuable each breath and each second of our lives is. Right. And so and so it's called Satisfaction Saturday. And what it is making sure you're having fun with the ones that you love. Take all your money. There's two types of people. There's people with F you money, and there's people with love you money. I would like to say that I was a person that lived with love you money, that I took money and I took it to have moments, trips with my family, golf outings with my son, not to keep score, but to just talk about life. Like, really taking the money and treasures of this earth is why we seek after it, is so that we can have moments, because in the end, we will have all these beautiful memories. And that's truly who we are, is we're going to be a memory at some point. And what will that memory be in the minds of our loved ones, our neighbors, our friends, and humanity? And so the only reason we make money is so we can have this a place to live. And what happens in a place you live? You make memories. And you have these cute little moments, or your dinner as a family, or a party with friends, or whatever it might be. And so I satisfaction Saturday is true satisfaction is not felt alone. You If you're doing something with no one watching to satisfy yourself, it's a fleeting enemy to the soul. I am who I am when no one is watching, when I'm all alone. Am I prepping to be with my loved ones? Am I prepping to be a better human? Am I making sure that I'm taking the treasures that God blessed me with to experience moments with my sons? We go on surf trips. We've been able to go around the world chasing waves, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't work hard. Yeah, that's great, but I could have put all that money in the S&P 400. I'd have millions of dollars right now, and then what? Woo, great. I never saw a hearse pulling a big old freaking casket full of gold behind it. You know what I mean? A trailer with a boat and all the homes that they own. They're all gone. And so that's the point, is that we're living with perspective, and we understand that no amount of money or success will ever amount to failure in the home. And whatever your home is, whether it's your apartment and you're not married, but it's your loved ones and your friends, there's no way of getting out of this world happy unless you're bringing happiness to others. So that's Saturday. Satisfaction, true satisfaction, living it up.
Yeah.
Then we move on to Sunday. This is a big one. So I've been in jujitsu for 15 years. I'm just about to get my black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I can tell you, it is one of the hardest martial arts. And I have been absolutely chasing this with injuries and everything. And it's really, really hard, but I love it. I love being able to, get my wiggles out and wrestle around every week. And if you were to ask me, Dave, what have you learned? You're a brown belt in jujitsu. Have you learned to just be able to beat somebody up? And I would say, no. I've learned a very valuable lesson. And the greatest thing I've learned is humility. I've learned to do this, because when my collar and I'm choking and I can't breathe, what do I do to get air? And he lets go. We've all seen the UFC. It's called tapping out, right? So uh, Sunday is called Supplication Sunday. It's to submit to a higher power. It's to be on my knees and say, God, I can't do this without you. I'm going to tap out on this one. I'm going to tap out and say, there is a greater spirit above me. There's someone who loves me. I need direction. I need worship. I need belief in a higher power. Some of the greatest feats in human history were not driven by money. They weren't driven by conquest, but it was people that were driven with a feeling in their heart that God was behind them, and they were doing his work. And so Supplication Sunday is making sure that I am humble enough to say, all the riches of this earth are yours. All the gifts that you've given me are yours. These trials you have given me are yours, that you gave me to learn something, God. I'm tapping out. I need to hear what that is. Please tell me. And I don't want to go throughout my life without you, without your blessing, without your guidance. I want to meet you one day, and I want you to say, son, very well, you did good. Yeah. And so that's Supplication Sunday, making sure we're tapping out to a greater, higher power, more bigger than us. And then the next day's Monday. And I'm telling you, you just live this vibration and tension. Dude, 30 days in, you're just like, getting away from the pigeons. You're like, see you later, pigeons. You're soaring up. You got your freaking eagle wings. You're flying everywhere. And you're like, dude, I met other eagles up there, like at 10,000 feet, and we could see everything. True perspective. So, perspective, perspective versus perception is. I have a funny story. I I cut my arm from right here all the way in half to here. Like my bicep was, I had PTSD. I had a construction accident. Went into my bone. My brachial artery was in the path of the saw for some reason. Heaven spared me because I would have been dead in 3 seconds. And this was 2 weeks before my wedding,
Oh my gosh.
which is why I didn't take my tuxedo off when I got home. I was in pain. I was like, can I just sit here for a minute? But at any rate, so I cut my arm and I'm at my brother-in-law's house. My wife to be, my sweet wife Rebecca comes out and there's blood all over the house and I'm trying to cover my arm. I'm like, don't come to me, don't come to me. I'm come down to the hospital in a little bit. So I was able to get myself in the truck. It was weird because my arm didn't work. I had to place it everywhere. Right, it was a trip. Anyway, so we come and we're two intersections away from the hospital, and my brother-in-law is driving my truck and he's honking, and this big local brother, big Samoan guy, we're in Utah, big Samoan guy stops his car because our light was red and his was green, and he's letting the birdie fly, and it was flying, and your mother, and he's pissed, and he's like, I'm gonna break. So he comes and he's on my side. So he gets out of the car, and there's big local boy, and he's coming over like, I'm gonna beat you up, boy. And I picked up my arm and I set it on the truck door and I took my arm off my wound. And I saw a man go from, I want to smash you to stopping traffic, going, you got it, boy, go, go. That's, that's perception versus perspective one. Okay. This all happened in this experience. Get to the ER, right? I get to the ER. Room 3. I mean, it was the fastest ER visit I'd ever had. They didn't ask me for my ID or it was great. I mean, other than the fact that I was in down shape, but it was like the doors parted, it was like the Red Sea, just and there's all these people in line, and it was cool because I remember their faces. Everyone, there's probably about 22 people in the waiting room at the ER, and when I looked over at them, I could see in their faces, they're like, I'm glad that's not me. I'll go ahead and just sit out this wait, right? Because I mean, I'm covered in blood. So they're like, all right, Mr. Fulmer, we got to get the specialist in here. We're going to go get you some x-rays. The guy that can put you back together so you can use your arm again, he's about an hour and a half away. And he's the only guy that's on call. This is our guy in the valley. He's the number one doctor, Dr. Bishop. He's the only one that's going to be able to put you back together so you can use your arm again. I'm like, okay, great. They're like, we've texted him. He called us back. He's up by Camas, up by Park City. He's on his way. I say, great. X-ray, doctor comes. They get me up to the third floor. They've got all these doctors are all set in their rubbery gloves and everybody's pumped. And that doctor's like, Dave, it's going to be okay. I'm like, cool. And then I see the doctor looking at my x-rays and the anesthesiologist is going to put me under. And, he's like, you're going to take a nap and wake up. Everything's going to be fine. And I was like, okay. And then he stops and he looks over and then a phone rings and then the doctor's on the phone. And then he's looking at the x-rays while he's on the phone. And all of a sudden, the nurses wheel me out of the room into another room. And I'm like, oh no, they're going to take my arm. I felt it. I thought for sure. I was convinced in my mind they're going to take my arm. He saw something and it's like, it's not working. And I didn't know. I was young. I was like 24 years old. And at any rate, about a minute and a half, 2 minutes go by, and I'm in complete panic at the disco, freaking out. Oh my gosh, I'm a stonemason. I'm like, how can I be the one-armed stonemason? I was thinking, well, maybe I could hold it with my little nub and chisel the stone at the same time. I'm like literally planning this out in my mind. And the doctor comes in and he said, David, I'm going to postpone your surgery. And I said, Doc, am I okay? Am I going to be all right? Am I going to be? He said, relax. You're going to be able to keep your arm. He said, life flight is landing on the top of the hospital right now. There's a 12-year-old little girl that was in a serious accident on I-15, and she has internal bleeding and she's in real bad shape. I'm going to work on her first, if that's okay. And I said, yeah, that's fine, doc. Save her life. I just want to know I can use my arm. He said, yeah, we'll get you some more pain medication, but I got to go. This girl's in serious condition. And he walked out of the room. And then but he did caveat. He said, I want you to know you're going to use your arm again. Don't panic. I got you. This is going to be all good. Perfect. And when the nurse wheeled me away, I asked the nurse and she got choked up and she said, that is the very doctor they would have needed to save that girl's life. And so, too many times in our lives, we see tragedy, but we don't see the gift on the other side. I don't get to see these tragic moments in my life. I don't get to see the blessing on the other side, that it gives life, it gives beauty, right? How many plane crashes and black boxes and understanding flying and travel, how many millions and millions of lives have been spared because of one tragic accident, right? And so too many times we just look at the tragedy, we look at us, it's so myopic and me, that we don't live with true perspective. But here was a tragic moment in my life and a great mistake I made. But that very mistake gave a heartbeat and a life to another human being. So now when I'm driving on the freeway and someone's driving like an idiot, my road rage has been completely subdued. And me and my wife always joke, someone driving like an idiot, we're like, I hope they get to the hospital in time to see their baby born. And she's like, and then we role play on what we think it could be. Well, what if he's trying to get a job interview? I don't know. He was driving pretty fast. What if a loved one is about to pass and he's in a hurry? And when you instill that emotion into your mind of true perspective, instead of honking and freaking out on someone, you're like cheering for them. It's a crazy emotional, magical moment where it just leaves you the anger, the frustration of people that drive like idiots, because they do. But I can create my own emotion by thinking, I hope they get there in time to see their new little baby born. So that's perspective, my little perspective versus perception. So I always breathe, take really big breaths when it looks like something is super negative and down and I just breathe and say, you know what? There's something on the other side of this. And I dream. Like, we were in South Dakota and there was bad weather and 6 people had to get off the plane. Only 3 got off because my partner's over 6'9" and over 300 pounds. So they counted 3 people for him. We get off the plane and we both looked at each other and we're like, it's the butterfly effect. And we just don't know. And what if it was a car drive? What if our lives were spared? Nothing happened on the plane when it landed. It did fine. And it wasn't that. But we can't see. What if it was a car ride from the airport? I'm telling you that every bump in the road is for your benefit. Every turn that seems a dead end is a new bright beginning. And when we start to understand that and embrace the pain and say, I love you, teach me more, give me more, and just let me bear it with faith and a greater perspective, my gosh, my friends, you become superhuman.
So many times. First off, those are incredible and beautiful stories. My gosh. So many times, though, I know that that has been true for me. Like, I don't always know why I'm having a bump in the road. I don't always know why I'm being delayed. I don't always know, but sometimes I do get insight and I'm like, I look back, thank God. Thank God that happened because XYZ happened, right? And,
Yes.
so I think that so many of us don't slow down enough to actually be able to put that true perspective into practice. And it can be really hard to stay in that heightened emotion, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Because what I've learned, the only thing I know is I don't know. And you never know what you don't know. So, like you said, all these bumps in the road, And remember, the only reality is the one that we create. So when we look at this bump in the road as growth, we're like, all right, I'm going to learn something from this, right? I had ex partners one time or last year shut off my 20-year Google account. We're talking about my algorithm. Okay. Completely delete it maliciously. Okay.
Oh,
No joke. An ex
heartbreaking.
partner. And I was so pissed. I'm like, dude, it took me almost 20 years to get this algorithm. I'm like, dude, you Google my, and I was like, and I couldn't just pay a marketing company. It's like, I've got to be the wizard at Google, right? So I went down this rabbit hole because of it. And now I understand SEO and the Google framework better than I ever did. And it's like, I found myself the other day driving and I was like, man, I'm sure glad those guys deleted my Google account. I wouldn't be the ninja that I am at the internet. I wouldn't, it wouldn't have happened, you know? So you're right. It's life is so interesting and it's so for you. It's so the elements of the universe. I call it the bank of the universe. And we either are making withdraw. Every decision is either a deposit or a withdrawal. When I live with perspective, when someone drives by me and cuts me out on the freeway, and I say to my heart, I hope they get to the hospital in time. Cha-ching. It's a deposit because I'm keeping my rhythm. I'm looking at the perspective of a brighter future for all. Because when I have love in my heart, it's going to resonate with others. The average person affects 40,000 people in their lifetime. That's 40,000 for good or for bad. So I starve the dark wolf and I want to feed the good wolf, the happy wolf, the perspective wolf, not the perception. It frustrates me when people, oh, this is my own reality or my whatever. It's like, okay,
I'm
you're
a
right.
realist. I'm a
Yeah.
realist. I
Yeah.
hate that
Oh my, I
phrase.
know. We're
I'm a
so all
realist.
connected. Yeah, the real thing that's happening is you're affecting a lot of people
Yeah.
generationally. Be a good human being.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so it's really cool. It's been so fun to watch. Everywhere I go, people I'm constantly getting texts on Thursday. Thank you, thankful and gratitude and forgiveness. I've had so many people experience this and really live it. And it it's not a 1 week thing, it's a life thing, and we're all going through it. And I love it. And right now I work with the youth corrections because that's where it started. And it is the most beautiful thing to walk in and tell these kids, you guys have a greater advantage than any other kids your age. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm locked up. I'm the bad kid. What are you talking to me? I said, no, no. You have a greater advantage because you've been places that they haven't. You've had your freedom taken. You have to sleep on a cold metal bed with a little teeny mattress. It's the size of a cookie. Not everybody gets to experience that. And I tell them one of the greatest leaders of all time, Marcus Aurelius, used to sleep on a stone floor. So he knew what the lowliest subjects in his kingdom felt. You guys are feeling something that the average kid hasn't. And that's a building block to great things. You can use this experience and you're gonna foundationally be able to go and do great things. And it's just changing people's perspective is what I love. And I love working with the kids and it's just amazing. I get to go see them every Wednesday. It's really, really fun.
Yeah. For a few years, I used to work in lockdown for teen boys. And I remember hearing and seeing some of those kids as they were going through the program and just watching the ones that took the lessons and the conversations and just started, we talked about perspective, just starting to shift that perspective a little bit. It was the most satisfying, gratifying thing
Cool.
that you could ever experience to see somebody's life change through the midst of hardship, you know? I mean, you lived it, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
And to watch a young man or a young woman, that little light
Yeah.
like you were saying in their eye, like maybe I am not this person. Maybe it's just the decisions I made, and I can be better. I can change. And that is just so powerful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's been a great journey. I love personal development. I mean, I love being able to get up and tell stories and talk to people and have them have a better perspective. And it's really one of my callings in life. I truly feel that God put me on this earth to send this message to as many people as far and wide as I can reach. And I've been blessed financially in a way that I could do that. And I'm on a mission now. So I'm going to be spreading the word, dude. Get in rhythm. You know, a funny thing is if you mist water in two silos at the same time, and in this one you play chaotic, really dark music, but in this you play organized symphony music, the water freezes, right? And it creates crystals at the bottom of these silos. And they've shown that the chaotic real dark music, the crystals are all unformed and jagged and weird. But the ones that are beautiful and there's wonderful rhythm and the vibration is positive and they're perfect, beautiful little these snowflake crystals that are all organized and glorious and beautiful. And it's so with our lives as we live each one of these days with true intention, this beautiful, beautiful, organized, wonderful symphony of life starts to unfold. And it's just amazing. And I love watching it. And thank you so much for listening to my long-winded stories.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Before we go into rapid fire questions, I want to ask you just a quick question though about consistency. Because as you were talking about all this, one thing that kept popping into my mind, like it doesn't matter if you're trying to be in the superhuman rhythm by going through the B7 program, right? Or if you're trying to change perspective, or if you're a pigeon trying to move into eagle land. Right, right. It doesn't matter what you're doing. I want to know about your thought process on consistency because that can become such a shame word for so many people. How do you help someone build consistency without turning it into a place where they feel like they're failing over and over and over, and then they just let go of this incredible work that you are bringing to the world?
Okay, so this is really, really simple. I call it do something. The key is to, because what happens is even in the like January comes around and everyone sets these big goals, right, for these New Year's resolutions, and the average person by I think February 28, 80% of them have broken them. And so when I had a shoulder injury, I had to have shoulder surgery. So I was out of jujitsu for almost a year. And when I was slowly getting back and I was going to rehab, um, my one of my good black belt world champion black belt coaches called me and said, "Dave, are you back in the gym?" And I said, "No, I'm I'm still just stretching and all that." He's like, "Why not?" I was like, "Well, I can't use my arm." He's like, "Oh, really? You can't?" He's like, "What if someone tries to rob you and your wife when you're coming out of the grocery store? Are you going to tell them you have a shoulder injury?" I was like, good point. Stop right there. I'm under shoulder surgery. May you rob the next person over, please. Ain't going to happen. So he went on to tell me a story of another world class black belt that tied his arm up to his waist and trained with the other hand and just got beat up. Of course, he was tapping left and right, but he did something. And so I just feeling that I went into the gym the next day, I tied my arm up and I mean it was like I cried. I felt so good. And so I started training with one arm. And so too many of us, and the example, like say, we'll set goals to go to the gym and maybe we have the worst work day, or we're in a fight with our spouse, everything is falling apart. And we just say to ourselves, how can I go work out at the gym right now when I can't even think straight? And I say, go to the gym, walk in there and just sit there. But you went to the gym. It's like a river. We have these goals and sometimes it's this rushing river. We're getting all these things done, but then we have this drought and it's a little trickle. Don't let it stop trickling. Do one little thing that's in correlation of you being that successful person and that intention and that goal and that consistency. Yeah, you might not be doing a 2 hour weightlifting session, but you went to the gym, and maybe you just went to the gym and meditated and prayed and said, God, I need help. I don't want to break my commitments to myself, but I'm going to do something. So I always encourage myself, do something. When everything is falling apart, I can't be consistent. I know in my heart of hearts, everyone listening can do something in regards to, even if it's one little inch forward on a mile, 28-mile journey. If you move 1 inch towards that goal, you've moved an inch. You've moved.
Mm.
And so when you start thinking like that, you're like, okay, because what happens is there's certain chemicals in our brain and certain things that shut off. And so you're right. If you're just like, you know what, I can't go through this, I can't do anything, and you do nothing, it actually redirects your thought process and you end up cutting off the part of the brain that says, we're going to do this, the consistency thing in your brain. So when you just do one little thing, it's you move you move forward. It got to the point where I set a goal to wake up at 5:30 a.m. and I challenged everyone on my social media and all my friends. It's like everybody's up at 5 turtles every day for 100 days. Right. And then my wife ended up having surgery. I had to travel all these places, and I was plane to plane to plane. I didn't even know what time it was, but I had my phone and I couldn't figure out. And I was like, well, I'm going to sleep in and I was like, no, I set the alarm, and I had gotten sick and I was exhausted. I got up at 5:30. I went through my meditation. I went through my reading. I walked around the block and I went back to sleep. So I wasn't up all day, but I kept the consistency of at least getting up. One time I just got up at 5:30 and sat there in my bed for like 10 minutes till I was aware of what was going on. And I was like, God, I am so exhausted. What am I doing? And I just did it. I just got up at the alarm and I ended up making it no problem. I got through, my 100 days, and it's still something I enjoy to do. But the point of the matter is you're not always going to be. I think sometimes we feel like we have to be this huge success in our consistency, or we have to get all this stuff done. No, just don't break the river. Don't let it redirect itself. I don't care if if you set a goal to be consistent, do this much in sales, call one person, make one phone call, take one step, do one little inch thing, because you can do it, to keep that consistent um, habit or trait or goal alive in your life. And you, believe it or not, man, you will be consistent.
Mm.
You'll stay consistent. Some days you'll make it 10 miles. Some days you're gonna make it only 10 inches, maybe a centimeter. So
Oh, that is beautiful and so inspiring. I love that. All right. So before we go into where people can find you, David, let's just do a few rapid fire questions because I want people to know what you would choose to do or what your answer is in regards to the conversation we had today. So, are you ready for some rapid fire
fire.
questions? Three of them. All right, here we go.
Fire.
First one. What is one habit that looks boring but changes everything for you?
I think the tracking Tuesday, the art of awareness, because you don't really talk to anyone about it. It's like your own little personal thing, but it's so powerful.
So
Self
powerful.
evaluation. Yes.
Yeah.
How am I showing up and not telling anybody? It's not like you go around talking about it. You just
Yeah.
have that little conversation in the mirror.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good one. That's a good one.
Self awareness. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Question number two. What is one rhythm in your own life that really protects your energy?
Forgiveness.
Ooh.
Yeah. If I'm forgiving and I'm not being a pigeon and I'm soaring, it's just like people do things. And the minute I let it go and it's gone, I'm like, I'm so happy. Yeah, but this, and this, I still love you. It's okay. I'm not gonna let it derail me. My vibe is just eagle vibe.
Mm.
All eagles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love it.
Forgiveness.
Love it. All right, last one. What is one tiny but mighty rhythm that helps you come back to yourself when life really starts to get noisy?
Gratitude.
Mm,
That's it. Gratitude. When there's noise, if I can look up, I can get up. I can find something beautiful. When that eh, life's kicking your butt, I tell you what, like it was my mom, she knew the answer. The answer was to beautify and plant flowers. When the world had given her dirt and busted her up, what was her reaction? To beautify and
mm,
plant flowers, little children, and put a smile on someone's face.
yeah.
I'll tell you what, that's how you get out of the funk real
Mm,
quick.
mm,
Go to a children's primary cancer institute and read a book to a kid that only has 2 months to live, and then tell me the problem that you have is so big for you to be miserable. I'm telling you, my friends, there are so many people suffering out there whose sufferings are way greater than ours. And it's time we live with true perspective and have real gratitude.
yeah. Mm. This has been incredible, David. Incredible conversation. Where can people find you? Where can they get in your world? And how can they get their hands onto your book?
It's on Amazon. It's Becoming Seven, the Superhuman Rhythm, or they can also DM me for a free digital copy at my Insta, my Iggy, and my Ig handle is David Fullmer Official. That's DavidFullmer official. And yeah, that's my Ig. And then ticking it, if you're a ticker and talker, it's on there. Same thing. David Fulmer Official. I have my assistant that handles my TikTok. I try to not get lost in the sauce with TikTok, but it's a little past my generation. But I have to use it because it's part of the algorithm. So, but yeah, I'm and anyone that has any questions, it's also I love to do. I do also corporate consulting, how to get all companies kind of bought in on the vision and everything that they do. I love to do that. I love to teach. I consult a lot of small businesses on scaling, and a lot of them I do for free. I just enjoy teaching B7. So thank you so much for having me. I'm
Mm.
really, really grateful.
You're so welcome. And friends, as always, all of those links are in the show notes to make it easy for you to get your hands onto it. David, do you now you have had so many words of wisdom, but do you have any last words that you want to lay on the hearts of the listeners before we officially sign off for today?
I want everyone today or tomorrow, when they go to brush their teeth, I want them to use their opposite left hand. Okay. And when they're done, because the awkwardness is gonna open up their brain, I want them to look in the mirror and I want them to tell themselves how incredibly beautiful, special, and remarkable they are. And that God saved millions of light years to bring you to this earth at this very moment to be remarkable, to exercise your talents, and that we need you. We need you in this fight against good and evil, and we need you to be remarkable and superhuman. And I know that you can. So I need you to tell yourself that because it's
Mm,
true, and I know it.
mm.
Thank you.
David, thank you so much. You are incredible. Thank you for being here and sharing your heart and your passion. I appreciate you.
Aloha.
So many of us wait for motivation to come back before we actually begin again. But what I'm taking from this conversation is that motivation is not the foundation, it's the rhythm, the structure, the clarity, the small things that we repeat are often what carry us when the energy, the mood, or the circumstances of life when they start to shift, and shift they will. For everyone listening, if you've been feeling frustrated with yourself because you can't seem to stay consistent, or maybe you question what is actually happening, what's wrong with you, maybe there's a better question. What rhythm would actually support you? and what rhythm will make your life expand. And until next time, keep spreading that beautiful energy you were born to share.